Joe Harris is just an incredible shooter. And what you laughing at? I'm telling you. Welcome to 5280 Real Talk. I'm Gavin Foonberg.
I'm Avi Cohn.
I'm Milan Schneegel.
Here, you will be informed with what is going on in the sports world today. Today we will be covering the future primetime games, the Masters, a March Madness recap, and many other newsworthy topics.
To start off every episode, we're going to have a trivia question. The trivia question for today is who has scored the most amount of points in a March Madness tourney. Your options are Glenn Rice at Michigan in 1989, Elvin Hayes at Houston in 1968, and Christian Laettner at Duke in 1991, and Jerry West at West Virginia in 1959. Stay tuned for the answer at the end of the video.
Well, we got some great games ahead of us in the MLB, NBA, and NHL. Avi, Suns vs. Clippers, who you got?
In this game, Suns-Clippers, I'm taking the Suns. I really like this team with Devin Booker, DeAndre Ayton, and other players, and I think they're going to overpower the Clippers.
I'm going to have to disagree with you on that one. I'm going to take the Clippers. I think that the addition of Rajon Rondo really adds more leadership to this team. I think they're in a desperate need to win. They want to avoid facing the Lakers in the first round because that won't be a good matchup for them. So I think that they are the more desperate team and they're going to pull this one out.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Clippers as well. I think that they need to start getting in a playoff mode, and I think it starts versus the Suns in a tough matchup. Blazers, Jazz, who you got?
Blazers, Jazz. I'm taking the Jazz. As much as I want to take the Blazers, I think they're in need of a push, but I think I just haven't seen anything wrong with the Jazz. I think Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert are playing very well this year, so I'm taking the Jazz in this one.
The Jazz are a phenomenal team. They're the best in the league right now, but I think the Blazers, it's a divisional matchup, and the Blazers know how to beat this team, and the Blazers are trying to avoid a play-in game right now. So I think that the Blazers are going to win.
Yeah, I agree that the Blazers definitely need to win this game to avoid play-in games. However, I think that Donovan Mitchell's the perfect matchup for Damian Lillard, and I think that the Jazz are going to take this one. Mavs, Bucks, Avi?
I got the Mavericks in this game. I think Giannis, he didn't play against the Warriors a couple games ago, and I think he's still going to be a little shaky. And right now, Luka is making a fantastic MVP case, and then he has a supporting cast with players like Porzingis, and so I'm taking the Mavericks in this one.
I'm going to also take the Mavericks. The Mavericks are one of the hottest teams in the league right now. There's no doubt about it. They're also trying to avoid a play-in game, really battling against the Trailblazers, and that I think both of those teams are very desperate to win, and both great teams. I think it's going to be a good game, but the Mavericks are going to pull this one out, I think.
Yeah, this is going to be a clean sweep. I got the Mavericks. Doncic is playing at an MVP level right now, and that's all I have to say for that. Nuggets, Celtics?
I'm taking the Nuggets in this one. I think that they made a great move getting Aaron Gordon at the deadline, and he's been really good for this team since they've had him. I think Jokic is having a phenomenal season, and I think they match up well against the Celtics, against Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, so I got the Nuggets.
The Nuggets are a lot better than they were before the Aaron Gordon trade. That covers a hole that they've had for several years now, and they kind of had it in Jeremy Grant last year, but Jeremy Grant, in my opinion, is not the caliber of player that Aaron Gordon is, and not because he's not as talented. I think Jeremy Grant, if you're in need of a scorer, that's who you want, but if you're in need of a guy who's going to bring defense and energy, you want Aaron Gordon over him, and I think that the Nuggets are one of the powerhouses of the NBA now with that move. So I'm going to take them.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Nuggets as well. I think that Aaron Gordon is the perfect matchup for Jason Tatum. And, Facu Campazzo has been a great defender on these guards.
He really has.
He's a gnat.
He's
he
just
is.
there. He's not. He tries very hard. Doesn't have the body for it.
He's annoying. He
Yeah.
definitely annoys
He
players.
puts in the effort on defense.
Yeah. And I think that he's going to be great on Kemba. And, unless Jaylen Brown goes for 100, I don't see them winning this game. So, yeah. Avi, Blazers, Heat?
Yeah, last game for our NBA primetime picks, Blazers, Heat. I'm taking the Heat in this one. I think these are both very interesting teams. I think they're somewhat in the same position, fighting for a playoff spot. But I think Jimmy Butler, he's playing out of his mind. They got Oladipo at the deadline, and I think the Heat are going to come out with the win.
Yeah, I agree. I also think the Heat are going to win this one. The Heat have a desire to win now, I think, like no other team. They were in the finals last year, and this year they didn't start well, and now their playoff hopes are in jeopardy. But they've got a great coach in Eric Spoelstra, and I think that they're ultimately going to be the better team.
I'm going to go with the Blazers on this one. I think that, I think they're going to lose against the Jazz, and I don't see them losing two very important games in such close time, so I'm going to go with the Blazers.
All right.
On to the MLB, Yankees, Rays, Avi.
I got the Yankees in this one. I like the Rays team a lot, and I would like to pick them, but I think the Yankees they're too talented. I mean, you go down the list with players like Aaron Judge, Stanton, Gary Sanchez, and on the pitching side, Garrett Cole, Aroldis Chapman, and I think the Yankees are just going to overpower the Rays in this series. Elon?
Yeah, it's going to be a great series. It's two teams that are title contenders. Rays were in it last year. They beat the Yankees. I think the Yankees are going to win, not exactly for revenge. I think they're going to their bats are going to be too much for the Rays to handle. The Yankees are one of the better hitting teams in the league. I mean, you could put them definitely top 3. I'm not sure you can make a case for best, but they're definitely up there. And while I can see the Rays winning, I see the Yankees winning in this one.
Yeah, I don't have much else to say. I think Aaron Judge and Stanton are just going to overpower the Rays. Nationals, Dodgers, Avi?
Yeah, I'm taking the Dodgers in this one. I think they're going to win all 3 games in this series. This team's basically like an all-star team. Like if you were to pick a team in the MLB that is just the most stacked all around, it's the Dodgers. They've added players in free agency like Trevor Bauer, AJ Pollock last year. So I think the Dodgers take this one.
I agree. The Dodgers are a super team. They're unstoppable, to be honest. I can see some teams maybe competing with them in the playoffs, but I do think they're going to take it home eventually, and it wouldn't be very shocking to me if they were to lose less than 5 series this whole year. That's how good this team is. It's very hard for them to drop 2 out of 3 games. So I think the Dodgers will win actually in a sweep.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Mookie Betts, and I think that the Dodgers are going to clean sweep the Nationals in this series as well. Moving on to the NHL, Panthers, Hurricanes, Avi?
I'm taking the Hurricanes in this one. I know the Panthers, they're on a winning streak. I think it's up to 6 games now. They're at the top of that division. But again, I think the Hurricanes are hungry. They're third behind the Lightning and the Panthers. And I think this is an important game for them. And I think they're going to step up and take it.
I also think that the Hurricanes are going to win this one. They just beat the Panthers, and the Panthers are a great team. I think they're top 5, but I also think the Hurricanes are top 5. This is going to be an important matchup for both teams, and it'll be an interesting one, but I think that the Hurricanes are going to win.
Yeah, I'm going to disagree with you guys. The Panthers on a 6-game win streak, I believe, and they just lost to the Hurricanes, so I think it's going to be like a revenge game for them. All right, this Sunday we got the Capitals versus Bruins. Avi?
I'm taking the Capitals in this one. They have an amazing team with TJ Oshie, Alex Ovechkin, Bobrovsky in goal. So I'm taking the Capitals. They're at the top of this division right now. The Bruins are kind of middle of the division, and the Capitals are one of the best teams in the league. So yeah, Capitals.
Yeah, I agree. The Capitals are, in my opinion, the 3rd best team in the league, and they have just a ton of talent, and it will be an important game for the Bruins, and I would not be shocked if they were to win it, but I think that the Capitals are going to win it eventually.
Yeah, I got the Capitals as well. The Bruins just lost Chara, and I think he's a leader for their team, and I think that the Capitals are just going to outpower them.
All right, now on to the Masters. So starting Thursday at Augusta National in Georgia, we have this stacked tournament, one of the oldest tournaments in golf, and a stacked field. Who you guys have bringing it home this year?
I got Dustin Johnson winning it back-to-back at the Masters this year. He's just a tremendous player, and he's really good on a precision golf course.
Dustin Johnson is definitely a solid golf player. I would He's definitely a favorite, but I have Justin Thomas taking it home. He's a hot golfer right now, and he's ranked second in the world. He just came off of a win at the Players' Championship, so I think he's going to keep that streak going.
You guys are sleeping on my man Brooks Koepka. I'm taking Brooks in this tournament. He has 4 major championships under his name. He just had a knee injury 3 weeks ago, but I think it's going to be a great story, an iconic year at the Masters. And he also finished third in 2019 at this tournament where Tiger Woods won. It was a very close tournament. He lost by a stroke. So I think that'll give him experience going into the tournament.
Well, these are our predictions for the Masters. Drop in the comments who you guys have bringing it home. On to our weekly bold takes. Personally, I believe that the addition of Blake Griffin really makes the Nets worse. It provides way less spacing for the big three. Hear me out. Joe Harris is just an incredible shooter. And what you laughing at? I'm telling you. When Harden and Kyrie are dishing to Joe Harris in the corner, it's much better than when they're dishing to Blake Griffin in the corner.
I disagree. I think Blake Griffin makes his team a little bit better. I think he may be lacking on the defensive end a little bit, but I feel he gives this team experience. And Joe Harris is the type of player that he doesn't need a lot of minutes, and he doesn't need the ball always in his hands to make a huge impact on the game. I mean, in a matter of minutes, he can have 10 points.
Exactly. He doesn't need the ball in his hand, right?
Yeah.
So when James Harden is giving him dimes right in the shooter's pocket, and same with Kyrie, he's the perfect player to have on our championship team.
I know, but he doesn't need a lot of minutes.
But the more minutes he has, the more points he's going to have, which just gives less pressure on the big three, more pressure on the defense.
Joe Harris.
Or it puts more pressure on Joe Harris.
Joe Harris is still getting more minutes than Blake Griffin.
Yeah.
Plenty more minutes.
I right now he is getting more minutes, but those minutes are going to start.
It'll still
They're
narrow,
gonna
but
start
he'll still
narrowing.
have more minutes than Blake Griffin.
Overall, but it's definitely taking away minutes.
There are very few players in the NBA that make a team actually worse. And I mean, obviously, if there are bench warmers that go in with the starting lineup at the start
He
of the game.
definitely provides more depth. However, I think that in the playoffs, you need to have a guy who you can rely on to make outside shots.
I think that
All finals team have those.
Blake
types of
Griffin is
players.
not a terrible three-point shooter. He can shoot the three. He demonstrated that at Detroit. I think he brings veteran experience, and he brings energy. He brings... he wants to win so bad. He's never been there. He's going to help this team. I'm sure of it.
I just think he's kind of a big name who everyone's hyped up about. I don't think he's that great of a player anymore. He's out of his prime for sure. All right, on to our next bold take. I believe that Kansas was scared that Bill Self was going to be the next UNC coach before signing his lifetime deal.
Yeah.
This is because, Roy Williams started in Kansas. Then he went to UNC after Dean Smith retired, right? Roy Williams just retired in UNC. I think Bill Self was going to be the next UNC coach.
Well, I think I agree with this, but not for your reasoning. I agree with it because I think whenever a big job opens up, teams like a Kansas who have a coach like a Bill Self need to lock that down. But I don't think you can kind of base it off of patterns. I mean, yes, Roy Williams did leave Kansas to go to North Carolina, but I don't know if you can base Bill Self's coaching decision that would be completely separate from Roy Williams' decision in the past off of a pattern.
I don't buy this take at all. I think that maybe it was a thought running through Kansas's mind as an organization, but North Carolina, I don't think they were thinking about it. I mean, Bill Self is a guy that I would not see leaving. I mean, he's the coach of a powerhouse team, and I don't think he would go to North Carolina, whose future is really questionable right now. And at the same time, North Carolina just hired Hubert Davis. I feel like to hire a coach for such a huge program, you would have had to been in talks with him for so much longer than...
Yeah. Well, the only reason why I disagree with that is because he's basically been in talks with them because he's been sitting on their bench for the past
I get that, but
years.
I don't think that you can just hire a coach after a week, in my opinion. I think you need a little bit longer to see what,
I think they were definitely debating between Hubert Davis and some others. He was definitely top option for
But-
them. But I think that there's no coincidence that 5 hours after Roy Williams retires, he gets signed for a lifetime deal.
Okay, but I kind of agree with you, Lon, from the standpoint of like talking to coaches, because you have to talk to coaches before you hire them, unless they're really like in your program, like Hubert Davis. But with Bill Self, the guy was coaching at Kansas. Kansas is a consistent program. They're more than a tournament lock.
And Roy Williams was coaching at Kansas.
That's true.
That's why this is a bold take.
I think it's a bold take, but I think that I just don't really buy that Bill Self was in talks with North Carolina for a long time, which I think that's what it would have taken to get him to come.
I agree with that. I don't think that Bill Self was really an option that North Carolina was even considering at all. Maybe Kansas was maybe thinking it, but I don't think North Carolina ever had this. All right, I have a bold take for us now, our last one of the day. I believe that if Gonzaga had won the tournament, they would have been the greatest team of all time. And I get that's a huge if. That's a big if. I mean, to win the championship, it's not like if they had done something so minor, but if they had won, I mean, how could you not at least have them in considerations? I mean, in my opinion, they would be, but they went undefeated, assuming they win the championship in this alternate universe. And I think that ultimately they just had more talent. They should still be in the conversation for greatest team of all time, but I don't think you can name them as that after losing the championship.
Yeah, I disagree. I think, one, it's a big if, but I won't go there because I think that's kind of a pointless debate. I have to go with the 1982 North Carolina team, coached by Dean Smith, Roy Williams as an assistant, with Jimmy Black, Sam Perkins, Michael Jordan, James Worthy, Brad Daugherty, most of which great NBA players, also great in college. And the team that they beat in the national championship, they played a Georgetown team with Patrick Ewing, who at that time in college basketball was arguably the best player. And it wasn't, I think that was either his freshman or his sophomore year. And that Georgetown team, I mean, they were physical, they were a really good team, and North Carolina ended up beating them in a close game. So I go with this North Carolina team.
Yeah, that team was pretty impressive. I agree, but I got to go with the Duke Blue Devils and my boy Christian Laettner in 90-91. Christian Laettner, Grant Hill, Bobby Hurley all lined up together. That's just so scary. And then in the semifinals, they played the UNLV Running Rebels, I believe, and that team was undefeated, and they beat them.
Yeah.
And then they moved on to win the national championship. And I think that these sequence of events were just incredibly impressive.
Those teams are great, and I would also agree with Avi that currently that UNC team is probably the favorite to be the greatest of all time, but I really would have liked to see Gonzaga win and see how...
I do think, though, Gonzaga had an easier tournament than...
Gonzaga did have a pretty easy tournament.
They had a pretty easy tournament, and Duke wasn't in it, Kentucky wasn't in it.
That's true.
Those are two teams that...
And Iowa lost before they played Gonzaga.
Yeah, Iowa lost.
But I think they've proved themselves at the beginning of the year. A lot of people forget that at the beginning of the year, they play in a fairly easy conference. Really, only BYU is there. But at the beginning of the year, they beat Iowa, they beat West Virginia, they beat Virginia.
That's with no pressure, though. It's different.
But it's also, they've had barely any time playing together.
Yeah.
I mean, Luka Garza's been at Iowa for 4 years. I mean, I know they've had experience.
Yeah, I watched them when they first start playing.
Yeah.
And they were definitely like, wow, this team's incredible.
Yeah.
And I also think, like, one thing with Gonzaga, and I honestly think this argument could go both ways. Until the UCLA game in the Final Four, they looked unstoppable in the tournament and before. And I think this argument...
Beating every team by 15.
Yeah, this argument could go either way. One, either they were really good, or the teams that they were playing were just pretty average.
Yeah. Because, I mean, UCLA, we forget they were an 11th seed. I mean, maybe the seeding was messed up and stuff, but...
UCLA, I think that is a completely unfair thing to call them. I mean...
Yeah, I agree.
An 11 seed, really, like, I get that they couldn't put them higher. The Pac-12 was kind of generalized as being pretty bad this year, but I mean UCLA was far better than 11th seed.
Pac-12 was great in the tournament.
I would go as far as arguing as they could have been, if they played how they did in the tournament all season, I think they would have been a 1 seed, maybe a 2 seed. But
I agree. I think they could have taken teams like Alabama's spot as a 2 seed. I think it was unfortunate for that team, in the regular season, just because, I mean, you had a team like Oregon State and CU was the championship.
Yeah.
I mean, USC didn't even make it with the Mobley brothers.
Yeah.
So the Pac-12, it had an interesting season. I mean,
It's very weird.
USC didn't impress me though. I thought they were pretty good.
Yeah, USC played amazing until they met Gonzaga. I mean,
Yeah.
they beat Drake by 15. They beat who did they play next? They played Kansas next and beat them by 30. Then they beat Oregon by like 15 too. So I think that USC was super hot. I thought they could have beat Gonzaga, but
all right, that's going to wrap it up for bold takes. Next, we have a March Madness recap.
so we've already kind of been talking about this, but Baylor wrapped up as the champion,
Yeah.
and I mean they deserved it. What else can I say? They dominated through this
Yeah.
tourney. They really had no competition.
It's incredible how Davion Mitchell is such a late pick.
I agree.
Yeah.
Falling to the Nuggets
He,
And I
in the
also-
mock drafts.
falling to the Nuggets in the mock drafts. He played amazing. I mean, what was their closest game this tournament? Villanova?
Yeah.
Probably.
It's
I think
Villanova.
a game that stood out to me for this team was the Houston game, because Houston was a team who I really didn't think was going to go that far, even though
Me
they were a
neither.
2 seed.
But-
and they fought and they won games.
I'm telling you, that
However-
Grimes kid, I watched him at Kansas one year, but he clashed with the coach at
Yeah.
Kansas, and he didn't play at all at Kansas, and then he transferred. Last year didn't really get a chance because of COVID.
Yeah.
This year, he played a hell of a season.
I'm not really sold on Houston. Houston, you can look
I
at their
agree.
path to the Final Four.
Yeah.
They've played Cleveland State, Rutgers, Syracuse, and then Oregon State. I'm not saying those teams aren't good. They proved to be pretty well. I mean, pretty good. Oregon State made it to the...
Syracuse is pretty good. You know, their defense.
I
is just-
agree.
You can't practice against it.
I think that all those teams are good, but they didn't play a single, like
Yeah.
powerhouse team until the Final Four where they got smacked. So I'm not sold on that Houston team, but I think that Baylor was just the best team this
Yeah.
tournament.
All right. What do you guys think it was like? Because obviously we didn't have Kentucky and Duke. What was that like this year?
I enjoyed it. I thought it gave other programs a chance to, believe that they can win. You're facing a number 2 seed Alabama. You're not facing a number 2 seed Duke
Yeah.
or, Kentucky, which is different.
That's coming from a Duke fan too.
Yeah.
Yeah, this kind from
Duke
Duke fan.
fan.
But I thought it gave other people chances, and I noticed it most when the guard on Winthrop was leading their team in every single statistical
That's
category.
crazy.
And then I watched him shoot a free throw with his offhand.
Yeah.
His name's Chandler Vaudrin.
Yeah, Chandler Vaudrin.
I liked him a lot. Got an opportunity. They lost, but he played well. So I thought it was interesting.
Yeah, it was fun. This tournament was nothing but fun. It was the most fun I've had watching a tournament ever in my life. March
Yeah.
Madness is my favorite sporting event of the whole year, and when we had so many upsets this year, without Duke and Kentucky, that opened the gate for many things to happen, and it was a great tournament.
I agree. I think this tournament symbolized the time, because I think going in the perception was there are not going to be a lot of upsets in this tournament. It is going to be a top seed tournament.
Yeah.
And yes, the top 2 seeds did go to the championship,
Which is
but
interesting, but
in all of the rounds prior, there were so many upsets. I mean, if you looked at the Sweet 16 or the Elite 8, the seeding in that was just so whack.
Yeah,
It was-
when I filled out my bracket, I was like, this is kind of the year to fill out every higher
Yeah,
seed.
every top seed.
Because some of these, you haven't even seen some of these schools, never heard of them.
it was Oral Roberts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have they ever been in the tournament?
I'm sorry if you're an Oral
Yeah.
Roberts fan, but
But they were good.
Yeah.
And, I thought it was going to be the year where majority of the games weren't upsets for the first time, but it was clearly the opposite. There was so many
Yeah.
upsets. It was
I mean-
interesting. What do you guys think about Loyola Chicago? You guys think that they're going to be a powerhouse program?
I don't. I think it could take a while if they do get there, but it's going to take a while if that ever happens. But I do think they're at a tipping point right now where either, their coach is going to get hired by a bigger school and their program kind of goes downhill, or their program kind of goes and rises up and they become sort of like a tournament lock.
All right.
This next year coming up for Loyola Chicago is really big.
Yeah.
Um,
Because they had a lot of seniors this year.
They
losing
They had a
their
lot of
heart and soul.
seniors. We'll see if teams want to go play there. We know their coach is capable now of winning, but when it's that, like, you don't want to go to Loyola Chicago if you're a top recruit. You want to go to Duke. You want to go to Kentucky. You want to go to North Carolina. You want to go to Kansas. So it's going to really depend on if people want to go play at Loyola Chicago.
Obviously, and I think that's a big if. Do people want to,
Go to there.
risk it and not go to a Duke and go to a Loyola Chicago? But I think that, if it was me, I would definitely want to go to like a Duke, obviously.
Yeah.
But Loyola Chicago, the coach has proven that he can win. He went to the Final Four. 2 years later, goes to the 2 or 3.
3.
3 years later, he goes to the
Sweet
16. They're just they're definitely a tournament lock in my opinion.
Yeah,
they
and I think
they don't have a very tough conference.
I don't think they're a tournament lock, though. This could go all south for them. They might not get any recruits.
Yeah.
And they could just be
if with losing Cameron Krutwig, that could be big.
And there's a couple other kids that were there for that Final Four run for this again, so they had experience. But now they've got to figure something out.
Yeah, they do. And I think, you're always going to get kids. Like, I think for me, if I were a senior this year going to play college basketball next year, obviously I'd want to go to a Kentucky or a Duke, but I think you're going to get kids that, want to go to a smaller school, kind of have that cool Cinderella story, except that if they go, then it might not be a Cinderella.
That's what I'm saying. Even if they are a later seed and they make a run, I'm not going to really see it as a Cinderella.
Or
team.
kids that just live in Chicago that want to stay home and know that Loyola Chicago is a decent basketball program if there's a top recruit there.
And going back,
Cade Cunningham, he went to Oklahoma State, want to go there.
And also,
it's a bigger school.
It's a bigger school, but they're not
Yeah.
known for basketball.
Exactly.
And what you're saying about, even if they're a lower seed and you still think they're going to win, take North Carolina this year. In the first round, they did get smacked by Wisconsin, but I think a lot of people still pick them to win that game. And some people might have picked them to beat Baylor just because they're in North
UNC.
Carolina.
Exactly. I think that could happen in years to come for Chicago. All right. Why were there so many upsets this year?
Okay, you point the obvious finger at COVID. That's one. But I also think the atmosphere overall, not really for any reason, it just felt different. I think teams, whether it's Kentucky and Duke not being in the tournament, whether it's COVID, they just had a different feeling this year.
Yeah. There's some kids that, weren't as motivated maybe on higher school programs, and there were seniors on lower programs that wanted to win more.
Yeah.
And
Isn't it like that every year, though?
Kind of,
But I think it was emphasized this year.
It was emphasized this year, definitely. And also, there's triple the crowd for the bigger schools and the smaller schools at a regular game.
Yeah.
And this year, no.
That was going to be my main point, Usually when you have a huge school compared to a tiny Oral Roberts.
Yeah.
And, actually, Oral Roberts is a huge school, if you didn't know.
Really?
I think they're one of the bigger schools in the world. They're pretty big. But, a small program.
Small basketball
program. Yeah. They're not going to get nearly as many fans as a powerhouse program will. And I think that really makes a difference. It really made these teams believe.
It made them just feel like they were playing it made them feel more comfortable.
And I also think it showed in, the leaders of these teams. You take, going back to Oral Roberts, Kevin O'Banner, and Max A. Smith, if you look at their stats and just how they played, I remember watching first round against Ohio State, Kevin O'Banner, in the overtime period and all throughout the game, he battled and battled and battled, and basically him and A. Smith willed their team to all of these wins.
Yeah. Also, you said that you point the obvious finger at COVID, but to specify that, it's really that during the regular season, players weren't able to play because of COVID, and that could have dropped.
So it messed up the seeding.
It could have messed up the seedings for some of these teams. So,
what do you guys think about Oral Roberts? Kevin O'Banner has one more year. Max A. Smith is a sophomore. He may declare to the NFL draft. I looked at a mock draft. He was supposed to. Yeah. He looked like he was going to go 50th, late second round. I would stay if I were him.
Yeah,
I would.
Yeah, I hope they stay.
I would stay if I was him.
They stayed.
He's a great player, but the NBA is different. It's different.
It is. I don't think you don't get the same opportunity when you're drafted 50 as when you're drafted.
Yeah, he's going to be straight to the G League.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's going to have to shine in the G League, which is not familiar with. The coach might not like him. He gets put on.
Yeah.
They might not want to play him. But Oral Roberts, it gives him another year to showcase his talent. Kind of like Corey Kispert this year. As a senior going in the lottery, or projected to go in the lottery,
That's rare.
it's rare. But I think it's because he stayed
He was
another
one of the
year
best players in college
and
basketball this year.
was incredible this year.
I also think with like this scenario with O'Banner and Asmus, I think the same thing honestly is kind of happening at UCLA. Like if you look at all their players, none of them were seniors. Juzang, Riley, Hawkes, all of those
They're also
players.
like not NBA prospects.
Yeah.
Even though Juzang is incredible, he's really
I
not
think
an
he's
NBA
going to get
prospect.
there though.
He
I think
will-
if
well,
he stays,
I agree.
and I think if UCLA,
His
if
confidence.
all of these guys stay next year, UCLA could be a really good team.
ESPN put out their.
Yeah, I think they were 6th.
They were second.
Yeah, because they're the same team.
I can agree
and
with
maybe
that.
they're going to get some top recruits with.
Like, if they get
how
one more
good they
top
did.
recruit to pair with Hawkes and Juzang and Tiger Campbell,
Yeah.
that could be a
And,
powerhouse next year.
Guys may want to go to California, play
That's a great place
It's a-
to play
and
basketball.
it's the
Great
best-
program, best
Yeah.
ever,
Yeah.
arguably.
in championships.
Yeah.
So,
All right, well that'll wrap it up for that segment. Now let's look at the future in sports. The near future, not
not
NBA
all the
playoffs.
way down the road.
We'll start with the NBA playoffs. What seed are the Lakers looking at?
I think the Lakers are looking at a play-in game. I think they're looking at a 7 or 8. They're definitely not going to drop to like the 9 or the 10, but I think they're definitely going to be in that situation. Because LeBron and AD out, they've honestly bettered their team. Because last year, if LeBron and AD had gotten injured, in the bubble, like that would have been horrible for this team. But they've added Drummond, Schroeder, guys like that can step up and play and win a few games. But I definitely think they're dropping into a play-in game.
With Doncic playing really well right now and Portland
Yeah, Damian Lillard out of
Portland's-
his mind.
playing well too, I see the Lakers dropping to at least the 7th seed, at least. But I think they'll even drop one more because they are absolutely horrible without LeBron and Anthony Davis. They are terrible. Their best player is Dennis Schroeder.
Yeah, but I disagree with that.
If Drummond gets boards.
They have been proving to be pretty decent with their current roster, and this honestly makes them extremely scary for the playoffs. I think they're gonna.
Suns are definitely not happy right now.
That's bad.
I don't think they're gonna drop that far though. To be honest, I think they're going to maybe drop to the 6th seed, maybe 5th seed. I wouldn't be surprised if they stayed 4th seed. They're still winning. They're not looking as good as they would with their 2 best players, but
Could this AD injury affect them in the playoffs though?
if they get re-injured, yeah, we'll see.
And it's a Achilles injury.
Yeah.
Those are bad.
That's
Okay.
Those come back. We saw it with KD.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So, he may have come back a little early.
I also think with the Lakers, they already got surpassed by the Nuggets in like that. So I just
the
think
Nuggets are really hot.
the
right
Nuggets
now.
are really hot, but it's
The Lakers are also.
it just goes to
going
show
down.
you. And I think also with LeBron and AD out, they don't really have like a bucket getter. Like the guy that you can pass to and just go score like literally 100% of the time.
I agree with that, but they're kind of making it work. Kind of. They're not a great team. Obviously, they probably wouldn't make the playoffs with this roster. They're keeping it like 500.
But also like if you get in a crunch time game, like let's just say
Yeah.
theoretically it comes down to the last game of the season.
Who's taking that shot?
Exactly, who's taking that shot
shot?
crunch time?
Completely
Are
true.
you posting up Drummond?
Actually, Kuzma, he's the GOAT. Kuzma's taking it.
Kuzma hit a buzzer beater.
Caruso for the Kuzma alley-oop to Caruso.
Yeah.
Well, we talked about the Nuggets being really hot right now. You think they're title contenders this year?
Yes,
Absolutely. The Nuggets,
Legitimate title contenders.
yes.
legitimate.
I think that their roof is NBA champions, and their floor could be a first-round exit. I wouldn't say that most years.
Their floor is
It's
not
the
making
Nuggets.
playoffs.
I wouldn't say that most years, but this Western Conference is going to be a Western Conference where at least the first 7 seeds are going to be dangerous, and maybe the 8 seed, depending on who falls
I think
there.
the only weak team, assuming LeBron and AD are healthy, is probably Memphis. That's
Memphis
in the
is
playoff picture.
currently
right
not
now.
in. We could see.
I think they're in the playoff picture right now.
Oh, they might
They
be.
are. They are.
Yeah, if
They're,
they
they're
are,
eight right now.
they're 8th. But
But then if
there's
the Spurs surpass them,
there's playing games with
that's
7 and
Popovich.
yeah. There's going to be no bad teams, and the Nuggets aren't going to the 1 seed, so they're not going to play Memphis.
Exactly.
So I think that they could be NBA champions and they could be first round exits.
Yeah.
It really depends on matchups and how they play.
My only concern with the Nuggets, and they're very hot right now, so I think this has improved. But right now, their record home and away is the same. It's 16-9.
There's like no fans right
There's
now.
fans. There's fans now, and I think that should change now.
I think it's gonna change, but I don't know.
I was
like
watching.
just generally, your home record should be a little bit better.
I was watching their
Your
games.
home record should be better, but when there's no fans the entire year, except for very recently, like a week
Yeah.
ago, it really like it's the whole thing is home and away. It's like the same, you know.
And
The only difference is traveling, which
Yeah.
is definitely difficult. But
I was watching the game against the Magic, and Murray. It was a game that they were down by like 17, which was not good for them. But they came back, and they eventually won. And Murray shot the arrow to the stands when he hit a huge three, and he was just getting the fans involved. He was happy they were back, and I think that's going to help them a lot. Their fans are back. They still have the altitude advantage.
you know, the Nuggets are great. They are incredible right now with the addition of Aaron Gordon. He's able to not lock up, but contain most of the best players, the
Yeah.
Kawhis, the Paul George, the LeBrons. So I think that they're definitely title contenders this year, but I don't think they're
gonna win.
really, really scary until next year when Porter has another year to develop. He's hot right now, and if he can stay like this the rest of the year, going into next season, I could see him as an all-star, to be honest.
Yeah.
Jamal Murray, he always shows up towards the end of the year. I don't know. He's
Murray.
He's been really good recently. He's hurt right now with a knee, but
exactly.
I think
That's
he'll
what
be
I'm saying.
back
Towards the
soon.
end of the season, he always shows up. Yeah. And Jokic is incredible. Barton is, he's playing.
I hate him.
I don't like his game very much, but
Barton, if you're watching this, sorry.
I'm sorry.
but he had 25 points last night.
Yeah, he dropped dimes.
Yeah, he was nice.
He was
And Aaron Gordon is also putting up, in between 20 and 10. So
all right.
he's gonna. The starters all put up within 20 to 10 points. Every one of them can go for 20 on any given night. And with the addition of Davion Mitchell, if the Nuggets can get him next year in the draft, which they're projected to get, they are going to be very, very scary next year.
Yeah, all right. Enough hyping up the Nuggets. This is going back to college basketball. What does Arizona's future look like without Sean Miller as a coach?
Yeah,
Well,
I
first-
think that their program has already been struggling like crazy to begin with the past couple of years, and I think it's just going to keep going downhill. The only thing that could keep them in it is that Arizona's like, a great party school, and it's a big school, and it's in Arizona, like great weather. So that's the recruits want to go there, but otherwise, I think they're gonna fall off.
Yeah, as an Arizona fan myself, I'm not too optimistic about their future of their program. It depends on their coach, who they get. Maybe some players will want to go there now, but I'm really not sure what the future has in stake for them. I don't think they're ever gonna fall off and be a disaster of a program. When you're in a conference,
Power 5.
Power 5 conference, you're always gonna be a solid team
Yeah.
most of the time.
Maybe like a CU.
Yeah, you'll always
I can see
be.
them like that.
You'll be a solid team always,
More like a Creighton.
but I don't see them.
It also depends on who their coach is.
Yeah.
But I definitely don't see them at where they were, like 5 years ago, 4 years ago.
Where they were.
Locks. Lost
3
to-
seeds, like
Championship contenders.
Contenders, yeah.
Championship contenders.
Yeah, I think it's kind of just rough for Arizona. I mean, one, they kind of got punished. They haven't really been able to play, and then I think that's contributed to it. But now with Sean Miller gone, it could be. I think it's gonna be downhill for this team.
Well, yeah. Moving forward, do you think the Warriors are going to make a playoff push?
I think I don't think they're gonna avoid the play-in tournament. Like they're not gonna be like a 6 or a 5. I think they're just not gonna get there. But I do think they'll stay in that play-in tournament. They beat the Bucks. The Giannis-less Bucks, but still the Bucks. Last night, so they're a game and a half ahead of the Pelicans, which I think that's needed. I think they need a little bit of breathing room. And they're a game and a half behind the Spurs, so they're right in there, and they're 10th right now in the West. But I think they can move up to 9 or 8, depending on how they play.
Yeah, or go ahead, Elon.
the Warriors got a huge win against the Bucks. It was not a very good Bucks team, but nonetheless a win by 1 point in a comeback victory where Steph Curry dropped 42.
41.
41, my bad.
Still.
And they're going to be tight over there in the West. The Pelicans are a solid team. I'm not sure if they're playing like this, they're not going to make it. Hopefully that win can turn around. Well, I don't really want them to make the playoffs, but hopefully for them, this win turns things around for them.
Yeah, I'm scared for the Warriors. I mean, when Curry drops 41 points
They
they win by 1 against the Giannis-less Bucks, they're not looking very
Yeah.
good. But they have Curry on their team.
have Curry.
And, they're not the team you want to play in a play-in game with Curry. Curry, we've seen him be the underdog
Yeah.
at Davidson.
And we've also
And-
seen him take over the league.
Yeah, completely take over the league. Unanimous MVP.
Yeah.
So, I think they're going to make a playoff push. I don't think they're going to do good in the playoffs. They're going to out in the first round.
I think a key for them is a guy like Kelly Oubre. One of these role players has to step up and get a solid role that's not just being a role player. And also, if you've seen with Draymond Green, teams are literally leaving him open. I mean, it's one thing to be on the 3-point line. I saw him catch a ball on the elbow, and a guy's standing in the restricted area because he knows that Draymond is just not going to shoot it.
I was watching a video, I think 2 days ago, and I saw Curry just dribble everywhere, get right by, give Draymond literally
no
35
one.
feet. Not 35, 15 feet to shoot the wide open
For
three.
5 seconds, one's on him.
Didn't even dribble in to shoot a shot. Didn't even dribble in. He just stood there and gave it right back to Curry, and Curry had to force a shot up before the shot clock. So if you really only have to guard Curry, which you kind of do, because Oubre is terrible from 3. He's terrible. He's so bad. And Wiggins is such a bust.
Okay.
Wiggins is such a bust. I thought he was gonna have a semi he's their second guy. I thought he was gonna have a big year
Wiggins
this year.
is having a good year.
No, I mean they can't win. Statistically, points maybe, but
He's their second best player.
he's not a gamer. I don't think he's a gamer.
And
I
I mean, you guys are trashing all over Draymond. I think he helps the team a lot. He can't shoot, which
Well,
looks horrible,
obviously,
I think he
helps.
does all the other things, but they need
Defense,
a score. They need
leadership.
somebody else
they do
to
need
score.
someone to score. I think Wiggins is a good scorer. I'm not exactly sure what the problem is with that team, but they need to figure something out.
Yeah. I think also it's kind of a bummer for them. I think if Wiseman had been a second-year player,
He looked great in the beginning of the
I
year.
agree. But if this were his second year instead of his rookie year, I think we would be telling a different story. I think Wiseman is gonna improve.
I think he was the
drastically.
right selection for them.
I agree.
I think Wiseman is going to be a bust. I was really hopeful with him going into the draft, but
He looked good in the first couple games
I
too.
don't see a lot of upside in
He's a
him.
great scorer.
I think at best you're gonna get him.
He's also only averaging 6 rebounds. Which
Yeah, he's
he
not a
needs to
good
get boards.
rebounder. He's not good at all. I think at best he's going to become a solid center that maybe a Jarrett Allen, who's a great player. I would love to have Jarrett Allen on our team, but I think that's his roof, to be honest, which is not a good roof.
Yeah, I disagree. I mean, he's so young, but
He can
he's
shoot.
not there this year
Yeah.
for sure. And
Yeah.
nothing's changing over the next couple.
He doesn't look motivated either.
Right.
Luckily, he has Draymond on his team. Draymond can mentor him.
Yeah, I agree. But Draymond's gonna do it in not a very polite way, most likely. So
he got
that
got
could.
a tech for yelling at Wiseman earlier this year.
Yeah. So,
You guys
that's
remember
funny.
the game? This was a couple years ago when Durant was on the team, where Draymond
Draymond.
dribbled it up and he was gonna take the last shot, and he took it, and Durant was cussing him out on the bench.
Everyone thought they're they're not winning the championship
Yeah.
this year. They're so mad at each other. They all hate each other, and then they just completely dominated.
I mean, when you have Kevin Durant, Klay Thompson, Stephen Curry on one team, it's championship.
All right. Who are your MLB title contenders? Who do you got winning it all?
All right, I got the Dodgers winning it back to back. It's hard to say that they aren't gonna. No team has won back to back in the last 20 years, believe it or not. But they're an all-star team. I got them. They're gonna pull it off.
Yeah, I think this year, the Dodgers, they are a super team. I mean, you mostly see that in the NBA, not really in the MLB, but this is it. And
There's so many positions in
Yeah.
the MLB.
I also think, though, the NL playoffs are going to be interesting. I mean, you have a lot of teams, the Mets, the Braves, the Cardinals, the Padres, you can go on and on. But I think the Dodgers are going to ultimately take it.
It's nearly impossible to pick against the Dodgers.
Yeah.
The Dodgers have the best line. hitting lineup in baseball, in my opinion.
Yeah, I
It's
agree.
kind of arguable. I think it's pretty obvious that they have the best rotation in baseball, starting pitching rotation with Kershaw, Bauer, Bueller, all part of that.
Yeah.
And the bullpen is also fantastic. I don't know how you couldn't pick this team as a favorite. I'm not saying they're locks to win it all, but
Yeah.
it's hard to just pick a different team.
Yeah,
as
it's
you-
so early in the year, but injuries and everything. But as a favorite from right now, you got to go with the
You
Dodgers.
Yeah.
have to. In the AL, you got the Yankees.
Yeah, I go
You got
Yankees.
the Rays, who made it last year.
The Angels.
The
Angels are
Angels.
good.
The Angels are good. I don't think they're at the point where they could.
No. I think they could win that division, though.
And the Astros, the trash Stros.
I don't like the Astros, just putting it out there. Like, imagine having no talent, just cheating.
Yeah.
Imagine.
Imagine.
Hopefully the
Tom
trash
Brady.
Trash Stros don't
He got
win.
talent, but-
They deserve all the hate they get,
Yeah.
as long as no one's hurting them.
Joe Kelly, love you.
Joe Kelly. Yeah, hopefully he pitches against them when they play. That'd be amazing.
All right. Moving on to the NFL. So, as I think y'all know, the NFL changed the schedule, one less preseason game and one more regular season game. What do you guys think about this?
It is just absolutely blasphemous. It's outlandish. How can you do that after a year where there was so many injuries? There had to have been the most amount of injuries since the 1940s when they played with rubber helmets or leather helmets. It's just, it was the dumbest thing I've ever seen.
Yeah, it makes no sense. It's funny how dumb the NFL is for making this decision right after a COVID year where we saw a ridiculous amount of injuries. How can you do that this year? I get maybe easing into it. I still wouldn't agree with it, but now especially it's just such a dumb decision. It's like there's no other way to describe it.
And, like, there's concrete evidence that, like, many people think this is a horrible move. I mean, the actual players that are playing the games that make the NFL money, that's the reason why the NFL is so rich, is the players. They all don't like this decision.
Yeah, also, I think honestly one of the most important things, I mean, obviously staying healthy is important, but what I think is extremely important is the fact that all these records from years past are just ruined. Not necessarily ruined, but changed.
Completely.
There should be an asterisk or something, or
Yeah.
there should be something that says plus one more game. That one more game could be another 100 yards, another 200 yards for a running back receiver, another touchdown for a QB to throw.
It's going to be really only like per game stats that are going to make a difference, because now
It changes things.
it changes everything. And I know that doesn't directly affect the game, but there are people who care about that. It's always interesting to look at, the stat leaders at everything, and it's just going to shake it up a little bit.
And I think also, like, if the NFL keeps the schedule going forward after this year, you could see a 60 touchdown quarterback. It's never happened. You could see a 2,000-yard receiver. That's never happened. So I think those records are going to get changed, but also things like running backs rushing for 2,000 yards. That is an elite group of players that have done that. Derrick Henry being added to that this past year. But I think that club is going to skyrocket in names.
Speaking of Derrick Henry, I can see him having a super long career with his build, and I could see him being a great running back for way longer than a usual running back is.
But that's one less preseason game to keep his body healthy.
Yeah.
One more regular season game.
Yeah.
He could get hurt in.
It's just like, as an avid fan of the NFL, I love watching games every Sunday. I clear my schedule so I can watch the games.
Yeah.
And I mean, if they kept a fourth preseason game, maybe it would be a little better. I'm not sure if they can do that with scheduling, but I still don't agree with this because the game becomes that much less enjoyable when you don't get to watch your favorite players play. Like, Saquon was a guy I was looking forward to watching too. First game, it was the second game, sorry.
Yeah.
He gets injured. And it's just so unfortunate.
Yeah. And then
I'm hoping that 3 preseason games will still be enough, but just not the time to do it. Not appropriate.
teams, going back to Saquon and the Giants, you get teams like the Giants who are basically a one-man team with Saquon that just get absolutely ruined because their only player, who is like a Pro Bowler or an
Daniel
All-Pro.
Jones is incredible.
Yeah, but if you saw the play
I'm
where
kidding.
Daniel, I know,
Where he just fell.
he's going for the touchdown. He's like,
That
falls
just sums
over.
up the Giants' program right now.
Their programming, their franchise. It's sad.
Their franchise isn't terrible. Their franchise has been pretty good in the past,
Yeah,
but right
I mean,
now,
they have
back
Eli
in the
Manning.
but
Not too long ago, but
even you
It's been
just
like
don't
10
want to make
years.
any significant changes. There's been so much change already because
Yeah.
COVID. Just don't make any changes for this year.
Bold prediction: 17th game, Lamar Jackson's blowing out his knee. It's happening.
Bold
all right.
prediction.
Thanks for letting us know.
I'm telling you. Hey, if that happens, just saying.
That's horrible
All
to
right.
say that, but
Yeah, it is horrible.
you might
Sorry,
be
Lamar.
right.
But moving on to the trivia question and answer that you've all been waiting for. Who has the most points in an NCAA tourney? Drum roll, please. The answer was Glenn Rice, Michigan, 1989. 6 games, they won the national championship. He had 184 points, and he averaged 30.6 per game. An incredible stat line for a college basketball player.
That's incredible.
Yeah, that's
Tournament.
incredible.
So if you didn't get it right this episode, next episode on Monday, stay tuned. There's another trivia question that you get right. And if you did, congratulations.
You win nothing. Good job.
Pride. You get
Down the
pride.
line, we'll think of
Yeah.
something. All right, and that's going to do it for today's episode. From now on, every episode will come out on a Monday, and we're going to try to have one out every Thursday as well. I think we're pretty much set for that.
Yeah.
Please follow our Instagram down below for incredible sports content, obviously.
And subscribe.
Subscribe, yep. You can keep up with the sports world by doing that as well, not just us.
Yeah.
See you next time.